You know, when we think about war, our minds usually jump to the history books, right? To the maps, the dates, the grand strategies. But there's a whole other kind of history out there, one written not by the generals, but by the soldiers on the ground. Today, we're diving into the world of war poetry, and we're going to see how it gives us a raw human truth that those official accounts, well, they just can't touch.
So it brings up a really fundamental question, doesn't it? How is war actually remembered? Is it all about the big, sweeping narratives of victory and defeat, or is it found in those small, individual moments of pure fear, of loss, of just trying to survive? The answer, I think, tells us a whole lot about what we choose to value in our history.
And you can really see this split in two different columns. On one side, you've got the official histories. They're all about the big picture: strategy, political outcomes, who won, who lost. But then, on the other side, you have war poetry. And it zooms all the way in. It's about the personal cost, the raw human experience, all the fear and grief that just gets completely wiped from the official record. It's a history of the soul, not just of the state.
So what exactly is modern war poetry then? It's fascinating, really, because its whole purpose has gone through this massive shift from glorifying epic battles to actually questioning the whole idea of conflict itself.
Honestly, the best way to think about it is as an act of truth-telling. It's basically literature as resistance. It stands up and directly challenges the government propaganda and all those public myths that try to make war look noble. It just insists on showing the full, unfiltered reality, the physical, the emotional, and the moral mess of it all.
And you can see this change happen over centuries. For ages, you had epics like the Iliad that framed war as this heroic, glorious thing. But then, the First World War happened, and it changed everything. The sheer industrial-scale brutality of machine guns and poison gas, it made all that old glorious language feel like a complete and utter lie. So poets on the front lines, guys like Wilfred Owen, they basically had to invent a new kind of language just to tell the truth. And look, this wasn't just about writing sad poems from the trenches. These poets were on a mission. Their work had this vital purpose that went way, way beyond just literature.
And that mission, it really breaks down into three key things. First, it's all about challenging that myth of heroic war. Second, it creates this incredibly human and emotional record for us. And third, it literally changed the direction of literary history. Let's dig into that first one for a second.
If you want to see just how directly these poets went after propaganda, this is it. Wilfred Owen ends his most famous poem by quoting this old Latin phrase, which means, "It is sweet and fitting to die for one's country." And then he looks you right in the eye and calls it, simply, the old lie. That is a direct, head-on collision with the very ideas that were being used to send millions of young men to their deaths.
Okay, so the real power of this poetry comes from this brilliant, totally deliberate combination of two things: what these poets chose to write about, that's the content, and how they chose to write it, that's the form.
First up, the content. This was unflinching realism. I mean, they wrote about stuff people back home did not want to hear about. The mutilated bodies, the choking horror of gas attacks, the psychological trauma that we now call PTSD. They insisted that this painful, brutal truth had to be faced, no looking away.
And then there's the form, and this is where it gets absolutely genius. The poets deliberately made their poems feel like war. They used these broken, jagged rhythms that sound like gunfire or stumbling through mud. They used harsh, ugly sounds that give you no comfort, no harmony. The language itself starts to feel as broken as the world they were living in.
So, to see how all this comes together, let's just take a quick peek inside what might be the masterpiece of the genre, Wilfred Owen's Dulce et Decorum Est.
Just listen to how it starts. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags. I mean, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, heroic in those lines. He immediately rips away any sense of glamour. He shows us soldiers who are broken, exhausted, and old before their time.
And this right here, this is the poem's secret weapon. There's this incredible tension going on. The message, the content, is pure chaos. War is brutal, it's meaningless, it's agonizing. But the form is incredibly controlled. Owen is using these carefully built stanzas, a deliberate rhythm, all these rich, classic poetic devices. He's describing hell using the beautiful tools of heaven. So you gotta ask, why do that? Well, by using such beautiful, controlled language to talk about something so grotesque, Owen forces us, the readers, to confront how that same kind of refined language has been used for centuries to hide the ugly truth. This poem isn't meant to comfort you. It's meant to make you stare reality right in the face.
And all of this brings us to why this kind of poetry isn't just some historical artifact we study in school. It has this enduring legacy that's just as vital and necessary today as it was 100 years ago.
At the end of the day, its lasting power comes down to three things. Number one, it bears witness. It gives a voice to all the suffering that official histories just leave out. Number two, it challenges the lies. It's like a permanent weapon we have against propaganda. And number three, it preserves memory. It humanizes history and makes sure we never, ever forget the true cost of conflict.
And that leaves us with one last pretty urgent question. The poets of the First World War, they dedicated their lives to exposing the old lie of their day. So we have to ask ourselves, what are the old lies of our time? And who were the poets brave enough to tell the truth about them?